I'm Bruce Fumie. Behind me is the Church of the Holy Rood, where James VI of Scotland was crowned. On the other side is Stirling Castle, the reason for the Battle of Bannockburn. Mary Queen of Scots held pageants in the ground in between. James IV was born there, Bonnie Prince Charlie besieged it. There are pockmarks in the walls of the church where Cromwell's besieging forces received return fire from the castle. But today, I've brought you here for a very different type of history. When I was here filming a video a while back, the groundsman at the cemetery pointed me towards this memorial headstone. Here, alongside Blackwatch, Gordon Highlanders, Argyll and Southern Highlanders, it includes the name of a native North American. First People, Indigenous, use your term of choice. But this was a man, a human being who found himself caught up in events that took him across an ocean. If you want to know how he found himself here, then stick with me. If you're interested in the people, places and events in Scottish history, then click the subscribe button at the bottom right hand side of the screen. In the meantime, let me tell you a story. I want to tell you what little I know about Nona Chakasum. Now, one of the first things that I don't know is if I came anywhere close to correctly pronouncing his name. But I do know that Nona was born in Attawapiskat, on the Attawapiskat River in northern Ontario. It's the kind of place near Hudson's Bay that most of us would only see if we were watching Ice Road Truckers. You know, the kind of thing. Anyway, that's me imposing modern constructs and things. In May 1899, when Nona was born, Queen Victoria was coming to the end of her reign. Now, there's a euphemism for approaching death most of us don't get to use. Anyway, Nona's people would have still been living a pretty traditional lifestyle, coming down to the river for summer fishing and dispersing wider afield again to hunt in the winter time. They'd have been doing it since before the Hudson Bay Company arrived away back in the 17th century. Now, life in Victorian Britain was harsh for ordinary folk. And I'm pretty sure that the world, time and place into which Johannes Jacquesum and Anna Kostichin brought their son Nona had its own challenges. Now, the fact that Nona's sister was called Christina and his mum Anna suggests that Britain had already at least some kind of impact on this family of a remote northern First Nation. But that impact was about to become more direct. In the summer of 1917, an army recruiting officer came to Attawapiskat. Britain had been at war for 3 years, and they were now coming pretty far north and west looking for recruits. The UK and Canada, and I know Canada didn't really exist until 1982, but you know what I mean. The point is that the First World War required huge quantities of wood. Duckboards, shorn timbers for trenches, crates, the list goes on. It was effectively the motivation for the Forestry Commission being set up here. But it was also the reason for the creation of the Canadian Forestry Corps. Canada had agreed that 35,000 Canadian lumberjacks would be put to military service to cut down trees for the war effort. Now, at first, they were going to cut down Canadian trees to ship to Europe. But it turns out that space and merchant ships were limited, and they decided that men took up less space than wood, and so instead of sending wood, they sent lumberjacks to cut down trees in England, Scotland and France. So when Nona and 23 other men were taken from their family and their tribe, they didn't know they were coming to Europe. They probably didn't even know why they were leaving at all. By all accounts, they didn't speak English. And when Nona signed his attestation papers on the 3rd of July 1917, he did it with a cross. They left the village in 8 wooden canoes and what would turn out to be a 2-week river journey, then probably their first ever train trip to Halifax, Nova Scotia, followed by an ocean voyage where many of them fell ill before arriving in Liverpool in September 1917. Was this any less cruel than Highland clearance in the other direction? By November 1917, Nona had reached Stirling here. He cut down trees in the central belt here and further north in Nairnshire. Now, there's an interesting parallel between John McGregor, who went from Nairnshire in the other direction and became the most decorated Canadian in that same war. I'll leave a link to a video about him at the end. It's genuinely really worth a watch. Now, let's be honest. We know very little about Nona's life or activities or what went through his mind during that winter in 1917. What we do know is that the following summer, on the 7th of July 1918, he came to the end of his reign. He'd survived just a year from that cross on a piece of paper an ocean away. And he's laid to rest here with the great and the good of Stirling. Somehow, I'm guessing he'd rather be in what we now call Northern Ontario, what he'd have called home. Now, there are more Indigenous Canadian Forestry Corps soldiers buried here as well, including Peter Jacquism and trapper James Kiesk. They both died of TB in hospital in Stirling in 1919. Now, they weren't on that list of 24 names taken by the recruiting officer visiting Attawapiskat in the summer in 1917. So there's a far deeper connection and story to be told at some time. I would ask two requests of you though. Please share this as widely as possible so that the story can be told. And if you're ever at the top of the town in Stirling, why not pass by and spend a moment with Nona and these other First Nation people who laid down their heads here in Scotland in the service of, well, that's another story. Also, for the incredible story of a Scottish Canadian who volunteered in this war, click the video about John McGregor here. I mean, Dochas can be Lama alive. Cheery and Rasta.